Hey guys, it's Ryan here with HobbiesofaMan once again, and today we're going to be looking at The Forge. This is the first arc. We're going to be looking at the first 3 issues, which are right here. Here's issue number 1, here's issue number 2, and here's issue number 3. Did I get that right? Yes, I did get that right. So these came out last year, early last year, I think. They were priced at $6, and then eventually the second arc was priced at $7, and I think that's where it's going to stay because in April, Arc 3 starts, and I think those are at $7 as well. As you can see, this is an oversized book. Here's a standard comic book for you to compare against. And I really do think that it's great that it's this size. If I had a complaint about this, is that I wish this had cardstock paper for the front. Similar to the DC Black Label books, like the ones that are big. Those are box bound, I think, or square bound. And they also have harder, thicker end papers, right? These do not. These are very floppy books. So that's my only complaint about the size. Otherwise, I think it's perfect. I think it's great. The price is worth it. These are like 80-page books, more or less, or 60 to 65-page books, I think. And I really enjoy it. I think it's great that it's this size. I really am appreciative of that fact. This is written by Greg Rucka and Eric Trautmann. The art is done by Mike Henderson, who is a great guy. Well, I don't know if he's a great guy. I've talked to him once, I think, on Instagram. But he is a great artist. I really like what he's doing here. There is a little bit of same face syndrome sometimes, but I think it's actually because of the world building. So I think it works really nicely. And the colors here are by Nolan Woodard, and the lettering is by Ariana Mayer, I think. So everyone is labeled there correctly, I think. And I think I said everyone's names correctly, so I apologize if I did not. The publisher here is Image, and this is definitely an adult title. So the demographic is adult, 18 plus. There's sex, there's violence, there's drug abuse, there's basically everything that you can think of to an extent, right? So it's definitely adult. In terms of genre, I would call this a space opera. I would also say that this is space, military, sci-fi type stuff, right? I mean, the space is implied in the sci-fi, but it definitely has that kind of vibe. And it does not have an adaptation, although this would be a really cool animated science fiction show. I think it'd be really, really awesome. And the rating for this is a 4.5 out of 5. I do have some issues with the way that the world building was given to us as readers, although I don't really have a problems with any of the writing or any of the art. It's just purely with how it was presented that I have issues with. And since that is part of the reading experience for a comic book, that's why it kind of negates some of the elements here, which is why I can't give it a perfect score for myself, right? So, yeah, but the premise here is muscle mommy super soldiers. That is the easiest way that I can describe this. Muscle mommy super soldiers are sent out on a retrieval mission to a far-off, far-flung region of space. And it turns out that it's actually not a retrieval mission. It's not what it seems. And now they have to basically battle their way out of a situation and possibly start an intergalactic war, like depending on how you might look at it, right? And so this is in vein with something like Halo or something like Dune. It has kind of that sort of style. And it also has stuff in common with The Foundation. Now, I don't mean the Isaac Asimov books, because those are very strictly they're almost like mathematical books that happen to have a science fiction idea, kind of similar to the way that Jurassic Park books are biology books that happen to have a narrative to explore this idea, right? The Foundation TV show, though, is a space opera in the general sense, right? And the TV show has a lot of elements that are very similar here. It has this hegemony, or this ruling class that is exactly just clones of each other, which is something that happens here. And it also has very interesting specific types of technology and very minimal alien life, right? And so the Foundation TV show is very similar to the setup for this. So if you like any of those things, if you like super soldiers like in Halo, if you like, like very huge space empires like in Dune, and if you like the way that the Foundation has that kind of like, what's it called? Like the clone empire or whatever it's called, like the genetic empire from the TV show, you'll probably like this because it is very similar in that sense. If you like the Bene Gesserit from Dune, you'll also like this as well because there's a whole cast of characters that are all just space witches, right? So yeah, the premise is pretty awesome. It's muscle mommies, it's super soldiers, it's first contact story, it's all of these things, and it's really, really great. I really do enjoy this a lot. So the plot line here is pretty like long feeling, like there's a lot of stuff going on here. So we start off at the barracks of a ship where we get to meet the characters, right? We get to meet these girls. They're women, but honestly, I think it's better to call them women because they're like hard-headed soldiers, right? They're very serious characters, and I feel like it is a disservice to just call them girls, even though I don't mean it in a negative way, right? So we meet these women, right? And they're just chilling. They are kind of just there so that we can know who they are. There's 5 of them, each team of Forge, which is this super soldier kind of like cohort, I guess, or squad, is made up of 5 characters. One is a leader, one is a heavy, one is a medic, one is an engineer, one is a sniper, right? Like that sort of idea. And so we meet them. And then we switch over to the ship captain who's talking to someone, and we get introduced to the witch class of people in this world, which are called Cassandras. Now, this is apparently a reference to these mythological figures from Greek or Roman mythology, I think, who were these specific type of oracles that had the ability to see, but people didn't really listen to for some reason, as far as I remember. And so we get introduced to these Cassandras, who are genetic clones of the Empress, who have the ability to use telepathy and, other psionic type of things, right? And so we set up the oddity of this mission that they're going on. We get to know that it is not the common thing that these women are usually sent out to deal with, right? And so Cassandra, or the Cassandra, they don't really have names. They're all just Cassandra. And Vic, who is the leader of this Forge team, her name is Victory, are kind of meeting together. And this is important for later. So they kind of interact. Something happens. The Cassandra interacts with Vic's mind in a really crazy thing. And this is actually basically like downloading the mission, the mission important details to her for later usage, right? And so it looks crazy, but it works. Eventually, they end up at this far-flung planet, basically the edge of the known universe, the last section of the world before things are unknown. And this is where they're supposed to go. The women get on their war suits, which are basically mecha, and they basically launch off the ship as the ship is getting destroyed. Something happened, and there's this like Cthulhu monster that comes in and grabs the ship. It basically destroys a skyscraper is essentially what's happening. And they jump off the ship. They manage to re-enter into the atmosphere of this world, and now they have to basically deal with the situation that's happening, which is the ship is crashing on them. There's hostile flora and fauna, and they have to deal with the fact that they have no clue what's going on. And so we get to see them fighting throughout this situation. They end up finding a location where they can hunker down for a minute. They can kind of regroup for a bit. We get to learn more about the flora and fauna of this place. And then they finally manage to move on to the next place where they meet another Cassandra. She kind of shows up out of nowhere. And it turns out that first contact has been achieved. And this first contact is actually going to be a problem because the way it happened is by basically pissing off this unknown entity by using these like subspaces in order to travel, right? So basically they open wormholes, and they thought no one lived in that area, in that kind of hidden dimension where the wormholes worked, but it turns out someone does. And they're very angry with the fact that humans keep ripping open doors to their domain, right? And so first contact has been achieved, and it is going badly. And so the girls have to fight, they have to figure out what's going on, they have to find a way to escape, and they eventually do. And so they manage to get sent off back to the home world, which is the Empress's world where she lives, and they actually get sent right directly into her adobe, I guess, the place where she holds court. And so that's where this arc ends. And I left out a lot of information, a lot of interesting stuff, and kind of plot twists and situations that are really fun and interesting because I didn't really feel like going through all of it. But it's really good stuff. I really enjoyed this. I've read this book twice already, and I really enjoyed it both times. What happens also is that between the issues, you get a bunch of information at the back of each issue that is just given to you in like text. It's set up as an in-world document, so there's no immersion breaking. However, it is kind of not the best way to give information out. However, it allows them to give you all of this extra information and kind of get you primed to understand some of the stuff that is revealed in the next issue. So overall, this series works really well. This whole first arc is really nice. Really nice. I really did like it a lot. So yeah, that's it for the plot line. In terms of characters, we have Victory, who is the leader of the Forge group. She has like a white phenotype kind of look, and she has silver hair. She's also really similar to the first Cassandra we meet, and also she looks pretty similar to the Empress as well. Crazy Joe is the second in command. She's the heavy. She's also like the Lancer character. Like in traditional parties, the hero is the one with the sword, and the secondary member is the Lancer, who happens to usually have a lance. And so that's where that term comes from, but it's basically the counterpoint to the hero character, right? And so with Victory being the leader and the hero character, Crazy Joe happens to be the Lancer, and she also takes on the role of Heavy, kind of like a Reinhardt character from Overwatch, something like that. She's the tank character, right? Her vibe kind of gives me like Arab vibes, and she has very dark black hair and brown eyes and brown skin, so she'd be more like Arab or Hispanic or something like that, right? It doesn't matter, but I think for me it helps, like categorizing like this, so that's why I'm doing it. Harpo is the sniper character. If I remember correctly, she doesn't talk. It's either Harpo or Hap that don't talk. I think it's Harpo, the sniper, that doesn't talk. And she, again, gives me like Arab or Hispanic vibes, and she has brown hair. Then we have Pusher, who happens to have like a African-American kind of vibe to her. She looks more like a black person would. And she has black hair, and she also has like curly hair as well. She has these kind of cute little like buns that go across her head into this kind of like afro thing. I like how it looks. And Pusher is the medic. And then Hap, again, is a white-looking character, and she has red hair. And she's missing an eye, or she has like some damage over one of her eyes, and she happens to be the engineer or the technical person, the egghead of the group, basically. Cassandra number 1 is white with silver hair. Like I said, she looks very similar to Victory. And Cassandra number 2 is like Arabic / Hispanic, and she has very bright green hair. And the Cassandras are very easy to differentiate from everyone else because they have these like bondage, like harness outfits. They have these capes, and they glow. Like their capes, their outfits glow very drastically. It looks really, really cool. I really like how they did all of these things. In terms of other characters, we have the alien being, who's this kind of like Cthulhu worm monster thing. And we have the ship captain named Esteban, and his attendant or his first in command, who I can't remember the name of. But these characters are also like Hispanic, Arab type looking characters. Again, it doesn't really matter. Like, this isn't really important. I just think it helps in categorizing them. And it also is like an interesting world building aspect because the Forged and the Cassandras are all genetic copies of the Empress. However, not all of them look like the Empress. So there's like something more going on. And it's not explained clearly, but we can kind of assume that they're kind of like grown in vats, but they need like male seed, I guess. Like they need a male input of some way, and that's where their individual characteristics come from. And it also helps you as a reader differentiate them so that you know who's talking at all times, right? So it works out pretty nicely. I think that the way the characters are set up and the way that they're built and the way that they look is really, really good. I like all of it. And they're all like heavily muscled, like bodybuilder type women. So their body types are really interesting and not your usual like comic book fare, right? So if you're interested in diversity in that sense, this is perfect for that, right? So yeah, in terms of world building, like I said, this is like this Dune-esque empire plus witches, with elements of Halo in the super soldier stuff, and also elements of mecha anime, right? So each character drives a mecha. They're kind of mechas in the sense that like they're basically walking tanks more than they are mecha. Like they're not giant suits. They're like 2 or 3 times as big as the human characters, and the Forged are actually larger than average humans. So it's only about like 12 feet tall. Like it's like a 12-foot tall robot, which is not that big compared to, like Gundams. Those are like 100 meters tall or something, right? So if you like Halo, if you like Dune, if you like Foundation, I can't think of anything that has mecha that aren't like gigantic robots, honestly. I guess like if you like the human mechanical designs from the Avatar movies, like the James Cameron movies, you'll probably like this because they're kind of like that, right? So yeah, or if you guys have ever read the novels Odyssey 1, in Odyssey 1, there's this thing where people can connect to certain machines in a certain way. They get like these like neural network things inserted into their backs. And one of the people that can connect to one of these machines actually rides a walking tank, right? So it's like that. It's like a steampunk type walking tank kind of situation, right? So they're pretty cool. And it turns out that this empire is actually 8 millennia long. I guess it's lasted that long. And it has an immortal queen who happens to be the genetic basis for all of the secondary, like special class citizens, right? So the special class citizens, Cassandra's, are based on her genetic material. However, they have telepathic abilities where she doesn't. And so they're kind of like the Bene Gesserit of this world, or like the Tarvalon witches from Wheel of Time, the Aes Sedai. And then there's the super soldiers, which are called the Forged, and they were made specifically because basically there was a need for a show of force that was so special and so powerful that it would decimate insurrections, right? However, they couldn't make technology that was powerful enough that was usable by normal humans. And so they decided to make the technology and then engineer a pilot for that technology. And so that's where the Forge come from. And they use the Empress's genetic baseline as a setup, right? So they're super soldier clones. They'd be kind of like clone commandos or Republic commandos from Star Wars. If you guys ever read those books or played that video game, kind of like that. Yeah, so the Forged are clones of the Queen built specifically for war. It turns out they have faster than light travel, and they use this transit space called the sub-universe. And it turns out that there was a creature that lived in this sub-universe. And so first contact has been achieved after basically hundreds of years of using this sub-universe, because this creature is angry that its world or that its universe is being polluted by humanity's usage of it, right? So that's why first contact exists. And there's a lot of expansive notes in the back of the issues that help you develop your knowledge of this world, of this new series, that I find helpful. However, I do sometimes feel like there could have been a better way to do this. However, it is the most economic way of doing it. Like in the sense that if you're a reader and you don't feel like reading it, you don't really lose anything. But if you're a reader and you do read it, you get a lot of added value. And so it kind of balances out in the sense that you added like the writers added a bunch of extra information that for certain readers is going to be very valuable. And they didn't have to do it in a way that was so expensive. Like they didn't have to spend another 3 issues worth of money to create those issues to explain the stuff that was mentioned there, right? And you also didn't have to have a bunch of lore dumps from characters, right? We didn't have to create a new character that would be like the everyman character that would have to have everything explained to them, or explain everything to other people. So both from a storytelling perspective, in terms of like character usage, and from the perspective of like being effective in terms of money well spent and like ease of usage, I think that the back issue information was the best way to do it. However, it's also like the easiest way to do it. Like there's more that could have been done to make it better, but it is the most economic / efficient way of doing it, right? And so I respect it, but sometimes it did feel like maybe a little bit boring or a little bit difficult to start reading those things after you had this like awesome heart pumping issue, right, of comic book. So your mileage may vary there, but for me it worked out pretty well. In terms of artwork and fan service, and fan service in this case refers to titillating content, the artwork is phenomenal. I really love how it looks. I really think it has this very interesting artistic quality to it. It has a lot of like vibes to it. Like it has a lot of cool, interesting body types. It's very sapphic and it's very like lesbian centric, lesbian forward. It's very sexy looking without having to be like traditionally attractive characters, if that makes sense. These characters are sexy and autonomous, and they have like a lot of power to them, the way they are, and I really like that. There's also a lot of beautiful coloring. Everything looks great. There's a lot of purples and greens and oranges, colors that are very outside of the normal spectrum for humans to look at, and they look phenomenal. They're really well done. The printing is nice. The line work is phenomenal. The artwork itself is good. The coloring is wonderful. Like everything about this looks really, really nice. And there's a lot of characters, well, 2 characters. However, they happen to be in a lot of the story that have this really cool moon night glow to them. And now I refer to this as a moon night glow because the first time I saw something like this was in the Jed MacKay, I think. The Jed MacKay Moon Knight run, which is one of the first Marvel runs that I collected for a while when I started collecting comic books. I eventually hopped off of it, but I do want to go back to it. But they have this like specific glowing quality to them that I think is really, really nice. It looks great. And it's very horny. Like there is a lot of titillating content here. However, it doesn't really cross into being grotesque or unnecessarily raunchy, right? So it manages to go down that line without actually crossing it. So I think it is very nicely done. I really like what happened here. So yeah, 4.5 out of 5. The world building essays were a bit heavy for my taste. It felt a bit clunky compared to the way the story unfolds in the comic book. And that's really my main issue. It's not so much about how they did it or why they did it, but rather the fact that it feels so like different and so like rigid compared to the way the comic book is telling its story. And so I feel like there's a little bit of dissonance there, and that dissonance causes like an uncomfort in my reading experience, if that makes sense. So it adds flavor to a lot of things, but I feel like if it's not your preference to read essays for world building, you're not going to enjoy it. However, for me, it worked out well at the end. Like after I had all of this information, I was like, okay, thank God I read that. If I wouldn't have, I feel like I wouldn't have gotten as much as out of this story as I did. So I appreciate that I had the option, but there are other ways to do it, right? So yeah, so I don't keep repeating myself. I think I'm going to leave it at that. Those are my thoughts on this story. I think it's great. I'm very excited for the next arc coming here in April, and I can't wait to read more of it. So yeah, let me know if you guys have read this down below. Let me know what you thought about this down below. Thank you guys very much for watching, and I hope you guys enjoyed. See you guys later.